30 seconds.
This is a Huddle Sports Network broadcast. You can find us on Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, Facebook, and of course YouTube. Get all your NFL news here first.
He has time. He's got him. Side touch is there. Leaping grab. Touchdown. Touchdown.
Okay, that was very strange. Why did the music all of a sudden cut off? Well, good morning. Oh, well, that's what happened. Someone changed the... There we go. Now we're back where we need to be. Good morning after someone cut the video off. I hit the wrong button.
My bad. That was my bad. I didn't know that.
Damn you, Rob.
I didn't know to do that. I was looking at something.
I was looking at it like, wait a minute, we're Ken and Ken in the morning. Why do I have the Huddle Sports Network?
Yeah, I was looking to see. My bad.
I tell you, well, good morning, and welcome to a Monday morning. Obviously, as Rob has showed, it's Monday.
I'm sabotaging the show early.
Sorry. Freaking Pat, I tell you. Oh, well, we're all here. We survived the July 4th weekend. Good morning, Joe. Joe made it on time.
I got all mine. Let's see.
Digit check.
Got them all.
I didn't blow none.
They just don't work properly.
I didn't blow none off.
No one got fingers blown off, so that's good. Of course, we had the sad news coming out of the Vikings camp. Their rookie cornerback died in the car wreck. That's always sad to hear. I read a little bit about it. I guess he was driving, and the car that caused it all was trying to pass on a 2-lane road and hit him, and then sent his car flying to the side where it hit a bunch of tree stumps, and everyone in his vehicle died. Everyone else involved in the accident, no injuries almost.
I actually read that it was a street racing incident, that the car who hit him was actually a girl that he went to high school with, and that they had all had like a night of drinking, and basically the girl pulled up alongside him. She was trying to pass them, like you said, on a 2-lane road, ended up flipping their car and sending them into those trees, and unfortunately,
he was. Okay, I get that. That's a different report than what I saw. So maybe as a report, still sad that the guy gets drafted, gets to his dream, and then boom.
Yeah, I wasn't trying to say it was any less sad. Just
no.
It's just I'm trying to provide a little more,
Yeah, no. All I heard was he was knocked off the road and they hit a bunch of tree stumps and everybody.
Yeah, I didn't see this. I didn't see the street racing stuff, but
it doesn't matter how it happened.
More is going to come out, obviously.
That just sucks.
So,
but if it was street racing, it's hopefully a valuable lesson for a lot of these kids coming out. Like this guy had his whole life ahead of him, had a great future ahead of him, and one drunken night is all it takes. Just ask Henry Ruggs.
Well,
man.
It doesn't even have to be drunken. It can just be a one night of not
recklessness. Yeah,
of recklessness. Yeah. So I mean, pretty sad there. Pretty sad. I spent the whole weekend in the backyard building my shed, and I get no sunburn. I go do a route recon for a buddy whose daughter's moving up in my area with her boyfriend. His parents are buying him a house, and like their budget, obviously. Why you're buying your college kid a house to live in it for college instead of just, I don't know, renting an apartment like everyone else is beyond me. But low budget, which means probably not the best neighborhoods. So I told him I'd go recon the one they got the offer got accepted on, and I get burnt doing that. I'm outside the whole weekend, no problem. I ride the motorcycle for like an hour, hour and a half, burnt. I'm like, you got it. Go do something for a buddy, and I get sunburned.
No good deed goes unpunished.
I get it. So we got Hard Knocks on Tuesday for the Giants. I'm looking forward to that. Watch episode 1. Here's the thing about this Hard Knocks. I'm excited for it because it's different. Because Hard Knocks is always about the players and making the team or getting to the playoffs. This is all the front office. This is all the stuff that, as fans, we're always talking about how the front office, signing Saquon, how they go through draft picks, this is a peek into that that fans don't really get much. I mean, the Bears gave us a little bit this year with their own video on YouTube on 1920 Football Drive, right? Where they kind of showed fans in a little 35 minute or so clip, their process of going through the draft with the Dunze and Williams and all that. But this is like an in-depth look at a team's front office during the offseason. When have we ever gotten that?
Well, I think this goes away from the actual hard knocks. Hard knocks was supposed to be for trying to make a fucking pro football team. Now everything is in the season hard knocks, preseason hard knocks. I mean, bro, just name it something else. They're trying to take the viewers from hard knocks and actually use them. That's what
With it being the same production, I don't mind because you at least with that, you're going to get a certain quality out of it.
Right.
I get that, but
and like the cool thing about this one is those like you're seeing how they build the team to get to camp, before the next phase. I mean, this is the phase that, and let's be honest, this is the phase where the fans get the most consternation, right? Because we talk about like free agency. Think about all the shows we did coming into free agency about who's going to sign where, this, that, the other. Oh, the team should be looking for this, that. And now we're getting a peek into their thought process. This is only the Giants, but we're going to get to see about all the Saquon stuff, right? And see what the reality of it was, which we already know because they previewed it. They basically they told Saquon to test the open market and come back, and then they'll see if they can match it. We already know that. Good morning, Yoli.
Good morning, Yoli.
So, I mean, the cool thing about this Hard Knocks, though, is you're seeing how they evaluate, how at least this team evaluated free agents in the positions of need for them, how they're going to evaluate the draft and how they're going to go through the draft process. He was even talking about like the season ends and you have like next to no time to prepare. Like think about it, if you're a Super Bowl team, you got 2 weeks to prepare for the draft. Is basically what he was saying, or 2 weeks to prepare for this, that, and the other. Yeah, because you've got during the playoffs, you've got the Senior Bowl, you've got other stuff going on while you're in your playoff run that you still need to be paying attention to for the next season. So, I mean, it's a pretty cool look at the front office, which I think maybe will help fans appreciate more how hard of a job it really is. I don't think fans appreciate how hard it is in those offices, like with the scouting departments, the general manager and his immediate staff, and the assistant GM and those folks, and the contract people and everything else. I mean, I'm looking forward to it because it's a good look. It's a good look into that realm that we don't normally get to see.
Oh yeah, it's definitely interesting to me. Just because, like you said, you don't get too much of an insight into it. And I've always kind of liked the whole team building aspect of football. Like, I was one of those weird kids that when they were playing Madden, my favorite part was the off season when you got to you can change everything all around and all that. That's what I love the most. Granted, I love the gameplay too, but
why don't they just follow one team and just stay with them the whole thing 1 year?
Kind of like the Amazon special All In, which they did do with was it what team did they do that with? They did with an NFL team. It was the Eagles. I think they did that 1 year.
I think they also did it with the Cardinals too.
Yeah, they did it with the Cardinals, and Amazon's been doing it with European soccer teams as of late. So John Dorn, speaking of which,
right on time.
John Dorn's been waiting for the next season.
I already said that.
Yeah, actually, I was going to ask that question too. I had read that Caleb still hasn't signed.
Either one, either him or Dunze, both the top picks for the Bears. Not signed.
It was good, Yoli, and like Rome and Caleb, they probably weren't thinking about signing their contracts over the 4th of July weekend. So I'm not tripping. I wasn't tripping last week. I'm not tripping now.
8 days away, baby. 8 days, and you guys start camp, and those two ain't signed. I would start.
Put this way,
I heard let's start dusting off the worry meter. That's what they said. They're going to start dusting it off.
Hold on a second. Let me give you my official reaction to that. If it's a day before camp and they haven't signed, then I'll actually work. Until then,
man.
whatever.
Remember, he said that.
It's going to be 3 weeks into camp. Neither of them signed.
They won't be in camp either. They won't be in camp either.
Yeah, they won't be in camp. So at that point, we're all worried. But like last year, like a lot of players signed day of camp even. So I'm not even tripping.
I read something yesterday. I think it has to do with the hard knocks on the Giants, where the Giants GM was talking about Christian Wilkins from the Dolphins, the defensive tackle that the Raiders signed in free agency. And he said that he didn't think that he was enough of an impact player to add to the Giants next to Dexter Manley. So he allegedly passed on him, and they thought that was interesting. And then they actually broke down the stats, and Christian Wilkins actually had 27 third down pressures. He was tied with Chris Jones and one other guy, like, who are the best DPs in the league.
He won't help. He won't help at all.
So, I was going to say there's a reason why the Giants are the Giants.
Whoever's running that corporation's an idiot.
Yeah, but you got to remember, though, I mean, even with that, the context, they're looking at the context of within their scheme with what they have. So, but it was interesting because they did break down running backs and some different players. And the thing to remember, it's all within the context of their needs, their scheme, their whatever. So, I mean, there are going to be some butthurt feelings by some of these players. Like, what do you mean you didn't think on this, that, or the other? You know that's coming because they're airing this shit like what this front office thinks of them. So, I mean, that's a dangerous part for the Giants, right? It's like you can be creating some bad blood with some players because they're going to see what you think of them when they're having the meeting on running backs, what they think each running back does, and or what each defensive end does, or where they would fit for their specific team. Though I think that's the one part of the context is everyone needs to understand when these guys are evaluating, they're evaluating these players not into some vacuum of space. They're evaluating them in the context of what's their impact on my team. With my scheme, my personnel.
I didn't take it as like automatically that the Giants are idiots and,
Right.
Oh, how could you not know that Christian Wilkins is a good player? I took it more like, he was probably saying for the Giants because their defensive line is already pretty good. Like they got Manley, they got Brian Burns. Like, is he going to provide enough of an impact for the kind of contract that we're going to have to give him when we have so many holes everywhere else? Like, I think that was more what, at least I'm hoping that's what was their take. Like that.
I agree with. I agree with you, Joe. I think that's what it was. What was interesting too, though, if you watched the episode, was how they broke down like how much they'll spend per position. Like they're breaking down how their resources were going to be. Like, do we really have the resources for this, for that? Do we want to allocate our resources to this position or that position? Good morning, Mike. Bear down, Mike saying good morning. Do we have, how are we allocating those resources? So I find that interesting too. I don't know how many GMs are going to be too keen on doing this Hard Knocks in the future after this year. We'll see if this GM keeps his job at the end of the year or not. But, because if he doesn't, I mean, look, at the cool thing is, you're seeing exactly the mindset and how they're doing. I mean, as a fan, it's pretty cool to see how a front office is working. And like even with the Bears, with that little video they released, on their draft
office, though, man.
At their draft process.
He's working today.
He's working.
Yeah.
With their process, though, it's interesting how Poles and them went through something. They didn't show a lot of it, but they showed enough of it. So I like, as a fan, seeing these glimpses of how these front offices work, and I think, maybe the casual fan who doesn't do what we do, because we sit here and talk about football all the time like this, but the guy who just watches, the games on Sunday, maybe watches a podcast here and there or a show like ours once in a while, maybe hops on NFL Network to watch them, complain every so often. Now if they watch us, they're getting an actual education or insight on how these teams operate. So maybe like when your team doesn't make a certain move, it gives you pause to think, well, wait a minute, why didn't we spend the 25 mil to get this guy? You know, or that guy, or why did we not? So maybe some of those fan complaints get tampered down a little bit because maybe the fans start to understand more how it actually works.
Some of it makes sense until you get to the Ted Thompson era of Green Bay. Then it's just he was going senile. That's the only answer.
I mean, even when you look at like at where there's the Raiders, the Bears, the Packers, the Lions, whoever, you look at some of these GMs, like what were they thinking? There was still a thought process and a rationale, maybe on you know, look at maybe they over evaluated a guy. Like, oh, this impact's gonna be a lot bigger than we think it happened. I mean, that happens all the time. That's more. I don't think Ted Thompson was stupid. I think he over evaluated the value of some guys.
He massively would over evaluate the guys that he drafted. And he did not want to bring anybody else in towards the end of his career.
Right.
Or an A-Dub.
No, AW's not. We've talked about this on the Bears show a couple times. He's not. And yes, good morning.
I just want to throw out there that if the Giants GM gets fired after this year,
no one else will do it
because of Hard Knocks.
No, but it won't be. It won't be because of Hard Knocks. But then no one else is going to want to do the show.
Yeah, I'm just saying. Like, I just wanted to point out that there's plenty of other things to fire the Giants GM for. Like,
I would have liked to see Kwesi. Actually, I think he would be entertaining to see the Vikings because, dude, like we all call Kwesi crazy. But every year he puts a decent team out there that's competitive, competes well. You know, they're not a slouch. They can win some games. I'd like to see Kwesi and his thought process and how he does things and then meet whoever the guy is who manages his cap. Because Kwesi, you
can't figure it out. It just does shit and it works out.
Probably got some autistic dude in a back office somewhere.
Some Rain Man guy. Yeah. He's got a Rain Man.
The computer.
He just watches people score all day. He's like Wapner, definitely Wapner.
Yeah, Mike's the only one that thinks Eberflus seat is warm. It's not. It's not even warm.
I think it is too, Mike. No, I think he's the guy that so Poles saves.
Once again, this is where I wish Poles was on Hard Knocks because look at Poles has already said we're changing. We're changing the cycle. We're getting out of the cycle. So I think no matter what, it's not even warm this year because he wants to keep Caleb with the head coach at least 2 years minimum. And let's face it can take.
Should have picked a better head coach.
No, I mean, dude, why would you say that? Because the defense is so terrible now. Went from worst to one of the best in the league.
He's not proven to be great offensively. That's for sure.
Wow, your head coach hasn't proven to be great defensively, and that's for sure.
When he took over, our defense did a lot better.
What was your defense? You can't explain nothing to him, man. Don't even.
What was your defense? Look at offensive coaches usually like Eberflus is a defensive coach. His defense is going to be better than his offenses because he has hands in it. The Packers have an offensive-minded coach. Your offense is way better than your defense because, you have an offensive coach. When teams have an offensive-minded coach or a defensive-minded coach, that means they have to have a good OC or DC, right, to go with it. We had a terrible OC by our standards the last couple of years. We got a new one. We'll see how it goes. I don't think you give Eberflus 1 year with this OC and this rookie quarterback. If you do and only give him 1 year, then guess what? You repeat the same cycle that Ryan Poles has said time and time again. We're changing we're changing stuff here. We're breaking cycles. We're changing the attitude. We're changing the way we do things. So why would you put him on the hot seat and get rid of him and continue the same cycle you keep saying you're going to break?
And there you go. Mike asked you the same question. If Eberflus goes 6-11, would you keep him around?
Actually, that was the question that I was gonna ask. Is like not 6-11, but like with all the pieces that the Bears have put on their offense this year, and with the defensive improvement, Like, if they come out, I'm not saying this is going to happen, but just
Right.
hypothetically, if they come out and absolutely shit the bed, I do think Eberflus, he's not on the hot seat now, but I think at the end of the season, if they absolutely shit the bed with all that talent, his seat's
Yeah,
going to be a little
there'll
warmer.
be talk. There'll be talk,
be
right?
talk,
But he's not going anywhere. And you can also tell he doesn't feel that he's on the hot seat or his seat is warm just by the way he's acting, the way he carries himself, the way he speaks, the way his body language. Everything speaks of a coach who's been reassured that, hey, dude, you're good, you're safe this year. Just go out and do your thing. I mean, his body language and everything oozes that.
Everybody's safe until it's not.
Well,
I mean,
yeah,
if
but
you
I
have
mean,
a terrible season, bro, I'm not saying you're gonna, but if it happens, someone's got to fall. The axe falls, someone's head gets cut, bro. I'm just saying that's how that goes.
I don't know.
Everybody can say that now because everybody's job
honestly,
safe right at this moment.
I honestly don't know if anyone's head would fall, because if the offense sputters, they'll say new OC, rookie quarterback, still got some O-line stuff to work, whatever. And that's if the defense is good, and the offense sputters and shits the bed, then it's easy for them to say, hey, rookie quarterback, new OC, takes at least a year, blah, 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 blah. We'll bring everyone back for another year and see how it goes. Right? And then I think coming into the 25 season, then people would be on the hot seat coming in. But
it sounds like Rob's got a bunch of candles and crystals, and he's like cutting pigeons.
I'm just saying, bro. He was so sure they were keeping Fields too, and we know how that ended up.
Well, I mean, but look at the argument to keep Fields though is a lot different statistically speaking. But now, if you listen to what Poles is saying in terms of his coaching staff and in terms of
I'm pretty sure you said, if you listen to what Poles is saying, we're keeping Fields. I'm pretty sure you said that.
I mean, I never said that they 100% would not get rid of Fields. I was wanting to keep Fields because all the indicators, like, you keep Fields. The guy progressed every year. His numbers got better. Hell, his wide receiver and a tight end last year both had career years with them. Give the guy more tools, blah, blah, blah. That was an easy argument to make. Now look, obviously, Foles thinks Caleb is either better than Fields is now and or has a higher ceiling than Fields, and that's why he made that move. But if he's anywhere else in that draft except the number 1 pick, if he was at 3 and 9, Fields is still a Bear, and no one would complain about it. So I mean, there's a lot of different pieces of that. But when you listen to what he says now about breaking the cycle and changing, why would you fire, even if they shit the bed, if you fire the head coach, you repeat the cycle? And everything he's saying is break the cycle.
That's true, but there's another piece to that, which is that, like it or not, there's expectations with the Bears this year.
There is.
With everything that they've done, like, there's high expectations, and if the Bears if the Bears do not deliver on those expectations, there's going to be some calls for heads to roll, man. It's the NFL. It's not for long, dude. It's not just the players.
I agree with A-Dub, right? Anything less than a winning season, a playoff spot, is a failed season for the Bears this year. And I agree with that, A-Dub. I agree. I've said it before. It's if you get 10 wins and miss the playoffs, then obviously there are no changes. If you get 9 wins and miss the playoffs, I don't think you have changes. If you get 6 wins and miss the playoffs, I don't think there are changes, but now there's going to be discussion. Right? There'll be discussion. There won't be changes, but there'll be discussion, and that's what I'm saying. Eberflus is good for this year. He's not worried about losing the job. If they do completely crap the bed though and eke out only 6 wins, and there's going to be discussions, and he's going to start the year on the hot seat. If Matt say anything less than 10 wins is a failure. I mean, 9 wins isn't. I mean, look, if you go 9 and 8, that's not a failure.
With a rookie quarterback, I think 10 wins is a lofty expectation.
I was going to say, with a rookie quarterback, I'd be happy at anything 7 or above. Anything above that's just gravy.
I think the reason you get 10 wins out of a lot of Bears fans is this, because the defense is as good as it is. We won 7 games with Justin. And that goes back to my justification on why Poles ended up getting rid of Justin. Because he either thinks that, A, Caleb is better than Justin right now at this time and moment, and or B has a higher ceiling. So if the progression this year was going to be with Justin, you had to get to the playoffs, then that's why many Bears fans will say with Caleb, it has to be the same because he has to be as good or better than Justin this year, or you can't justify get rid of Justin to draft Caleb. And so that's why I understand why Bears fans will say, like Matt just says here, anything less than 10 wins is a failure, or what A-Dub says up here. You know, I mean, that's why people are saying that about Chicago, because you had a guy who's if you followed his progression, should have been 10 games in the playoffs this year had you kept him. You know, because the expectation of Fields was still here would be 10 games and a playoff. So that's why Bears fans are saying with Caleb it should be 10 games and a playoff. And that argument makes sense to me.
But it's such a toss-up because you're starting a rookie quarterback. So 10 wins is a lofty expectation for a rookie quarterback. But the Bears had a lot of pieces on offense to, you know, they have
it's
three
much
number
more
one
than that, bro. They've added so many pieces.
Yeah.
They got a new OC. They got a new rookie quarter. I mean, there's so much. There's
a lot of moving parts, to click from day one in order for you to get the 10 wins.
Yeah,
like it's not impossible, but it's a lofty expectation. I think Bears fans should temper their expectations just a little.
Did you guys change your offensive scheme at all with the new?
Well, I don't know how much. See, offense is weird, right? It's not like defense where you go from a 3-4 to a 4-3. Offense is a little stranger when it comes to changing coordinators. Teams tend to be able to make the switch with offensive coordinators a lot faster than they do with defensive coordinators as far as seeing the immediate success on the field. You tend to see the successes from offenses faster. Now look at the defense early in the season is going to keep you in games and can win you games anyway. So I think that's why a lot of people are at 10 wins. And they're like, if Justin were here, it'd still be 10 wins in a playoff. So I think people saying that that's not justifiable for fans to say that. Because they're saying, look, if Justin was here, even though you added, 2 new receivers, another good tight end, and new centers, and yeah, you've switched OC, but offense is offense. Like the changes in an offensive scheme compared to defensive scheme are not like caverns. They're minute in comparison. So fans typically, when you see the offensive scheme change, you don't hear fans or see the argumentation where it takes a year or 2 years for a scheme to take hold. They usually take hold very quickly within that season, whereas defenses take, half to 3 quarters to start seeing the results, end of season to really see it lock in. And then the next season they're there.
But I think that fans are kind of looking at things in a vacuum. It's like, I'll give you another example, like for the Packers, right? Look at the Packers. So last year, Jordan Love, he started off the season rough, ended the season on fire, right? They make the playoffs, they win the playoff game, they gave the Niners a fucking run for their money, right?
Yep.
So for this year, what's the expectation? Most Packers fans are going to say, well, we expect to be going deep in the playoffs, right? But in a vacuum, okay, I can understand that. But the NFC North just got a whole lot better. It's going to be a tough division, right? Yep. There's always the possibility, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but there's the possibility that Jordan Love has a sophomore slump, right? He doesn't play as effectively. There's the possibility that Josh Jacobs gets injured for half the season, as he has been.
Oh yeah, you've always got the X factors: injuries, player drop off.
So that's what I'm saying. So my point was that in a vacuum, I can understand it having higher expectations,
right?
But taking these other things into account, what would a Packer fan realistically say? What? So we said Bears fans are saying 10 wins or less than 10 wins is a fail. For Packers fans, to you, what would be a fail for this season? Well,
first you have to find realistic Packer fans, and you're not going to find
that. No, but this is a serious question for Rob and Ken.
We would have to match at least last year of getting one playoff win. Anything other than that, to me, is a fail. Anything. What I'd like to see is us to get the second playoff win. Granted, I'm not saying, I'm expecting the Super Bowl. Do I think it's a possibility? Absolutely. But I'm not saying that that's what the goal is, because you're hearing something.
I agree. I agree with John Dorn. No, I agree with John Dorn. Fuck you, Ken. I agree with John.
I was going to say,
Because
man,
you know what?
bro,
The second you say my team's a playoff team, you expect the Super Bowl. And look,
Fuck
that's even
yeah.
for the Bears, because look at if you get in the dance, that's it.
That's it.
If
You
you-
got to get in. You got to give your team a chance. You got to make the fucking
Yeah.
playoffs.
Yeah.
That's the goal every year, bro.
If you say that you expect your team to be a playoff team, then this is your motto.
Yes, fucking A, bro.
Yeah.
Bro, hey, look. Last year, if Barry's not our fucking DC, we finished the season with 11 wins. All right, that's already more than I think we're going to get 12 to 13. I think we're making the fucking playoffs, and I think we're going to make a push. Look out, man. The Packers are here. They got a fucking legit team, and they're fucking going to make a run for it. Look, I'm all in.
I don't disagree with what you're saying, Rob, but I'm just saying.
I understand what you're saying. The expectations, I understand.
Bare minimum, I want to see one playoff win.
So let's say, because the NFC North is more competitive, let's say you don't get 12 or 13 wins. You guys get in as a wild card because you drop a couple division games in a tough division, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, is that a disappointment?
Well,
Like,
look, you can split your division. You can go 3-3 in your division and still win 14 games.
The only way
You know what
I
I
see
mean?
us doing that is if there's injury or something. Something legit would have to get in the way of us of stopping it. That's what I believe. Injury or
look at you could look at you could have this will never ever happen, but let's talk theoretically here for a minute. You could have 4 teams that go 14-3 in a division. Why? Because if you split in your division, that's 3 losses, and let's say you win everything else, now you're 14-3. So
Yeah.
I mean,
I personally don't care if we're in as a wild card.
I mean, it can happen, but I like what Ricky
anything
says here.
besides the number 1 seed is all the same to me.
That's right. Doesn't matter. We got in as a 7 seed last year. Da-da.
Mm-hmm.
Now look at I
wasn't hurt by it.
Look at some players are gonna, like what A-Dub says. So there's some players will get drop off, some players will pick up. That happens every year. I mean, it's just which good morning, Don. It just matters. Here's the thing: which players drop off and how much. Like Kyler Gordon last year dropped off for the Bears, statistically speaking. Now, did you notice it as you were watching the game? Not particularly, but when you looked at his stats at the end of the year, there was a drop off. Players are going to pick up, drop down. Some of it's situational, right? It's not within their control. Like if you're Laporta and they don't throw the ball to you as much next year in Detroit for whatever reason, you're going to see drop off. It's not because Laporta got worse. It's because they didn't deliver the ball to him as much. So for some players, the drop off isn't any. The drop off is not on them as it is maybe in how the games flow, right? Some players get big seasons because the way the game flows, it just happens to fall to them every time. And then the next year, it doesn't. That's not on the player, right? So, I mean, there's a lot of those little X factors that go into this. And I think when you're looking at the North teams, I think everyone, even the Vikings, expect these teams to all be competitive to get into the playoffs. And once you get to the playoffs, your expectation is Super Bowl.
I agree with you, A-Dub.
I don't know. See, because I'll tell you, like, I'm a Raider fan, and my expectations for the Raiders are somewhat tempered, like, with the fact that, you have to be realistic about some things. Like, our quarterback situation is not very good. So, we'll see how Aiden O'Connell does going into his second year if he needs to leap forward. But, like, for us to be a Super Bowl contender, he's got to take a gigantic fucking leap.
But John hits it. If you get hot at the end of the season, that's what. Look at if you can hang around for most of the year. And good morning, Jason.
You just got to get in the playoffs, Joe.
Yeah, if you can hang around and get hot at the right time and get in the playoffs, dude, you can be the 7-9 Giants and beat the undefeated Pats.
Bro, we was the 15-1 Packers that got beat by the Giants, man. Are you kidding me, bro? It's fucking.
You could, But think about this. There's a reason we still talk about that 7-9 Giants team because it only happened at one time. Like that's the thing is.
That's the
so
thing.
what I was saying about the Raiders is that like
Raiders need
our quarterback situation is not great, right? Like we'll see how that turns out. But on paper, we have a really good offense, and our defense last year cracked the top 10 by the end of the season.
I mean, and you've got Minshew, who's kind of like an ace in the hole for you.
I think he's your savior.
I could see a situation where the Raiders win 6 or 7 games this year, and I could see a situation where they win 10 games this year, like and make the playoffs.
You want to win your division?
Of course, I want to win the division, but do I honestly believe that Aiden O'Connell or Gardner Minshew is going to be able to win more games than Patrick Mahomes? That's a tough sell, dude. Like,
I understand, bro.
I mean, I look at the NFC North, which is a very contentious fan-based division, right? Because our fan bases, I mean, you look at the Lions, they think they got the best player at every position in the division. You look at the Packers, they just think they walk on water. You look at the Bears, we're very, very hopeful for our rookie to be the savior. You look at the Vikings, they're probably the only ones going, well, I don't know about our quarterback. But still, everyone in this division thinks they can win the division, right? And they just do. And that's great because that means all 4 teams are moving in the right directions. We don't have the brown paper bag lion days, right? I look at it this way. When people talk about what's successful and what's a non-successful season, I think if you get to the playoffs, whether it's 9 wins, 10 wins, or 14 wins, that's a successful season just to get in the playoffs. Then you get into the greedy mode. How far in the playoffs you go, if we don't win 2 playoff games, it's a failure of a season. Bullshit, it's a failure. You made the playoffs. That's where you need to get. And then when you get to the playoffs, it's a whole different ball game. And if you win 1 and out, okay. Now look at if you go 1 and done 3 years in a row, I can understand that frustration and calling it a failure.
I was going to say, that's why I'm not saying you.
Okay, John.
Expectations of the Super Bowl, because I've seen how the playoffs can shake out. It's not always the better overall team that wins. It's not.
Yeah, and exactly. And here's the other thing for this year that's kind of going to screw things up. This kickoff rule, how's it going to affect? How's it going to affect stuff? Like there are going. We've said it before. There are some teams that are some teams that are going to win games this year, where the games they win they have no business winning, and they're going to win on the kickoff rule. I mean,
that's going to be awesome to see that a game could be decided by a kickoff. How often does that happen in the past? Remember that?
Oh, yeah, that shit hasn't happened.
It happened with Devin Hester was the last one really to have an impact like that.
Okay, but
right?
That's
Hester single-handedly won a couple games.
I mean, they fuck with the game so much, man. It could have happened a lot more if they wouldn't have taken out the wedge. The wedge was a great weapon.
Cordell Patterson.
But you were killing guys with the wedge.
So what? It's a rough sport. Toughen up.
I mean, so when you get to expectations, though, I mean, look we're all operating in a vacuum of
Justin Fields is the new
how many wins they're going to get. You gotta love it.
I'm not.
That's hilarious, bro.
Why
don't you put that up? Put that up, man, so everybody can see that.
No need to put garbage up.
I threw out there that I could see 6 wins as easily as I could see 10 for the Raiders. Like,
there's gonna be. I mean, the thing is, your defense is good in LA, and like you've got a Chargers team in flux. You look at your division. You got a Chargers team in flux. You got a Broncos team in flux. You've got a Chiefs team.
Influx is a very nice way of putting it. Denver is dog shit.
Well, but they're in flux because okay. I mean, look, the point stands the same though. Joe is they're not. You know what I'm saying? They're in flux. They're rebuilding. The Chargers are going through their thing to a different degree. You look at KC. Yeah, they just won our Super Bowl. They're still really good. Oh, hold on, Rob. Let me. They're still gonna they're still going to be really good, but let's face it, KC's has gone through some changes too. So I'm not saying they open the door wide open, but there may be a little bit more of an opening this year than there was last, right? The Absolutely. Raiders solidified their coaching staff. They solidified the defense. They brought in some stuff offensively. I mean, you guys could come in second place in that division very easily. And if you guys can win 9 games in the AFC, that could get you a wild card.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just that I don't, even if we get a wild card, like I just don't see us being able to realistically contend with teams like Baltimore
With
or
that
you know
defensive line that you have a puncher's chance.
but that's all we have is a puncher's chance. Like I'll take the puncher's chance over no chance.
Yeah.
But like my point is like this, like if I understand why Packers fans are confident, right? You have Jordan Love,
Right.
like, you know, I understand that. With the Raiders, like I think our defense is going to be hands down one of the better defenses in the league this year. I really do. Especially our defensive line is going to be fucking monstrous, dude.
Top 5, man.
The thing is quarterback takes you, you know, you only go as far as your quarterback takes you, man. And so, like, I just don't know if Aiden O'Connell or Gardner Minshew is going to be that guy that can take you into Baltimore as a wild card and win a playoff game like that.
Yes, because look at the 06 Bears. Rex Grossman was the quarterback, and we all heard Des say when he was on, but he was off. Oh boy, was he off! And he was off more than he was on. I would almost argue that 06 Bears team. Heck, they beat Arizona on Monday Night Football without an offensive touchdown. They scored many touchdowns in that game, none of them offensive.
But they also had Lance Briggs and Brian Urlacher and Charles Peanut Tillman.
But still, and Hester returns. But I mean, defense in this league is going to win you a couple games still. Mm-hmm. I mean, I get what you're saying, you know, that, you know, often you go as far as your quarterback, but how many times have we seen, and granted, it doesn't happen all the time, but it happens, where an offense is like middle of the road, 15, 16, 17, defense is top 5, and they make it to the Super Bowl with that. It happens. So, I mean, if the Raiders get their offense... Yeah, but I mean, if you shut
everybody's ass, and then all of a sudden they get to the playoffs, and Lamar dicks the dog like he always does.
And their defense did, though, too. Their defense let them down in that playoff game. Their defense let them down. They had a fall off defensively in that championship game. I mean, it wasn't just offense. People key in at the offense. It's the easiest thing to look at. But that defense gave up a lot of plays that they normally don't give up in Baltimore. So, I mean, with your defense is good enough that if your offense can get middle of the road, they're a playoff team. If you get to middle of the road, you're a playoff team with that defense. If you've got a top 10 defense, a top 5 defense, let's actually refine that. If you've got a top 5 defense and you have a middle of the road offense, you're going to make the playoffs.
Yeah, I don't know overall if we're going to end up with top 5 defense. Like we finished in the top 10 last year by the end of the season. I do expect top 10, but like I don't know, top 5, you know, we'll see. That'd be great.
Adam, I think they solidified their coaching staff at the end of the season.
Yeah, AP is their staff.
They're solid now. But
I do agree with him that they need to establish an identity. I get what he's talking about. It's not just the coaching staff. Like they've established an identity under AP, but he's talking about like as a team, you know, are you an offensive team? Are you a defensive team? The Raiders haven't really established their identity of how they're going to consistently win games. Are they going to lean on defense, or are they going to lean on the offense, or are they going to be a balanced team? Like,
I think it's defense initially, and then maybe become balanced. But initially, I think it's all about your defense and hope that your offense comes along.
I agree. I think the defense is going to keep us in games.
And I think that's what's going to happen. The way I look at the Bears, that's why I look at the Bears right now. It's like the defense is what's going to keep us competitive while the offense comes along this season. And in Green Bay, it's the opposite. Their offense is what's going to keep them in games while they bring their defense along.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the Lions, I don't know what their deal is going to be because, I mean, I guess for the Lions, you could say they're balanced, right? Their offense isn't particularly stellar. Their defense isn't particularly stellar. They're both very good at certain things at certain times. So for them, maybe it's more balanced. Would that be
same old line?
Yeah, but I mean, But you know what I'm saying? Would that be a fair assessment? With the Bears, it's going to be the defense's identity while we bring the offense along. For the Packers, it's the offense's identity while they bring their defense along. For the Lions, they're balance. And then for Minnesota, it's defense while they bring their offense along. Would that be a fair assessment to make it within the division, the NFC North?
Yeah. I mean, everybody's got to work on something. That's how I see it.
And with the Lions, it's like they're balanced, but it's like, did they plug the holes that everyone felt they had and that they had? And then will there be drop off as teams now? Look, you won the division. Everyone's gunning for you. Everyone's looking at the tape of you twice as much as they are everyone else. You know, everyone. You design
Gold Lions.
You know, you designed to knock off the champ, not the second and third place team.
Where's
So,
the Bulls Gold Lions?
but I mean,
Did Dan Gamble go to Gamblers Anonymous and learn how to
Yeah.
gamble or not to gamble? I mean, that's
yeah,
the other
like
question.
what tendencies are they going to change, and what's going to be different? So, but I think that would be a pretty fair assessment of where the NFC North is divisionally as far as identity.
Duct tape,
You know,
the glue that holds America together.
and if you look at the AFC West, I mean, look at in KC, it's offense, and they got a pretty decent defense too. But it's their identity is the offense. The Raiders, it's going to be defense as they bring the offense along. The Chargers, I think it's defense while they bring their offense along. And with the Buccaneers, with the Broncos, it's
See if
We
we
gotta-
got a football team.
yeah. Can we actually get a team on the field that can do something? Because they got questions everywhere.
With the Broncos, are we picking number one this year?
Yeah.
That's what it is. Let's just be honest. Like,
You want to talk about a coach on the hot seat?
I was going to say, could you imagine if Sean Payton takes them to the playoffs?
he should
Yeah.
win Coach of the Millennium.
Yeah.
If Sean Payton gets them into the playoffs this year, he should be NFL Coach of the Year.
I said Millennium. Like, to take a dumpster fire roster, like, dude, they traded 90% of the good players on their roster. They're just and I hate Denver, don't get me wrong, but this has absolutely nothing to do with my personal animosity towards Denver. Just objectively looking at their roster, there's no way that they're going to be competitive. Yeah, right, John.
I mean, you know,
We're actually coming up on the Bears Packers streak right now. We have 8 straight against the Broncos. So by the end of this
here's
year,
the
we have
question
10.
though: if they are the worst team in the NFL this year, does Sean Payton have a job? You know, some guys in the hot seat. Does he have a job at the end of the year after 2 dumpster fire years back to back?
I think he does, because you have to, it's not a vacuum. Like, you have to look at everything that took place. Like, they got Russ, and then him and Russ didn't work out, which I think was 100% Sean Payton's fault. But,
That's right. Yeah, I think he created his own problem.
He traded Russ absolutely like dog shit in front of the whole team, and you can't do that to your star quarterback. But, like, then they get rid of Russ. Like,
He found a way to get him out of town, didn't he?
But my point is that now they're paying $38 million to the Steelers for Russ to play for the Steelers. So they don't have the money to field a competitive team. Then, they gave up all those draft picks for Russ, and that really, shut down.
That was pre-Sean Payton. So he is. Look, I agree with you.
Fault. So I'm saying is he walked into a shitty situation. It's going to take some time to turn it around. I think next year, like the next year's draft is going to be the first time where Sean Payton actually gets to kind of.
I think you need to give head coach the minimum of 3 to 5 years.
Yeah,
3 to 5 years.
I don't think he's going to get fired if they suck this year. Is what I'm saying. Like, he gets the benefit of the doubt.
I mean that's what it used to be in the NFL. You gave him 3 to 5 years, and the problem is
that's what it used to be.
Yeah, I know, but that's a problem though. Is it should still be, because the problem is this: it was 3 to 5. Then Ken comes in one day, takes over the team, and has immediate success because he just had a stacked roster, right?
Well,
kind of like when Cowher leaves the Steelers, he hands over a stacked roster, immediate success, right? And because the teams say, "Well, look, they just had a new head coach and immediate success, so we should expect that," but the situations aren't the same. One brand new head coach is handed a stacked roster, the other one isn't, right? I mean, when these teams strip down, a la Chicago, a la Detroit, a la Denver now. It's a 3 to 5 year process. And I think at the end of year 3 is when you start judging. Like year 1, year 2, you know you're going to be garbage as you strip down and start rebuilding, start adding rookies and stuff, a lot of rookies to teams and stuff like that. At the end of year 3, if you don't see progression as a GM, like if let's say you go from 4 wins, let's say you go from 6 wins to 3 wins, and then you don't go to 7 or you don't go to 6, right? If you stay around 4, then maybe, okay, maybe this head coach's program is not going to work. But if there's progression in year 3, from let's say 3 or 4 wins to 6 or 7, or just missing the playoffs, then I don't think a hot seat is the hot seat for that guy because it's working. And you got to give him the next year or 2 to see. Then on top of that, you add in situational elements, i.e., the guys, you have a head coach coming to the 3rd year, and now you add the rookie quarterback, or now you add the big rookie, the edge pieces, let's say that whatever that final piece of that build is, right? Which is usually in the year 3 is when you're getting those final pieces. If you don't see that 8 to 10 win season, making the playoffs or just barely missing it, then maybe you start having discussions about, okay, well, look at next year, here's expectation, you know, and then you've got the other X factors, you know, what roles do injuries play? Because we always look at, well, the coach, you know, they only won 6 games. Dude, you lost your best defensive player for half the season. That's why you lost a bunch of games. You know, we forget those things. But I think coaches, 3 to 5 years minimum. It takes that long just for what they're trying to build to take root. And
as long as they're getting better, I agree with that.
Yeah.
If a coach doesn't make the team any better in the first 3 years, you fucking move on. That I don't think another 2 years is going to. I think you're wasting your time. You want to see progression in those first 3 years, man. It don't take 5 years to know if your coach has got it going on.
And like, well, that doesn't take 5. But as I said, if at the end of the 3rd year you're not seeing, like, okay, so that's 3 seasons. You know, how many of those 10 wins though were at the end of season 3? If let's say at the end of the season, you know, that's 3rd season, let's say is when you got, you know, 5 or 6 of those wins, you know, and if you're 1 and 2, you completely gut the team and leave them with nothing. That's not necessarily on the coach. It's, you know, there's multi-prongs to that, right? If your GM guts the team, trades everyone out, you know, gets rid of long-time veterans and starts bringing in a ton of rookies and other people, then that's going to affect the coach. So it's not the coach's fault in that year. Now, look, if there's not, like Rob says, if you don't start seeing progression, and sometimes progression is not even in wins and losses, it's the other statistical categories. You know, if your team doesn't get better on 3rd down conversions, get better on 3rd down stops, or better on completion percentages, or better on whatever those other indicators are. You know, win and loss, yeah, it's a big indicator, but it's not the only indicator that these guys are looking at for progression.
No, but if you go look at the Lions, like that first year, they lost their first 7, but then they turned it around and got the next 7. They progressed. And then the next year, that's when they win 12. They get 12 wins the next year.
But I think there's also, like, the Broncos situation is a bit unique because they made the huge trade for Russ. Right. They gave up all kinds of draft picks and all kinds of money, guaranteed contract. So when Peyton comes in, they already had 1 year of Russ where they underperformed. Then they have the 2nd year where they underperform, and then they dump Russ. Now they're still on the hook for that contract, and on top of that, they're just now getting their draft picks back. So I think it's a unique situation for them.
And remember, Joe, they gave up a draft. Well, remember, I just want to add to your argument. They gave up a draft pick to get Sean Payton too.
Yeah, and so my point is that, like, you know, Ken was talking about, like, it's a 3 to 5 year process of stripping down and rebuilding a team. I think that process might even be a little bit longer for Denver because they already came into it with that huge contract, with giving up all those draft picks. Like, then they just last year is when they traded Judy. They started, like, stripping down the roster.
That's because the Broncos tried to rebuild when they had that fucking idiot coach from Aaron Rodgers coach. Yeah, he was a failed season season. That's the problem, is they put all their money on that guy leading their team, and he totally was the worst thing that ever happened. They did that whole trade and everything, and then it's not Peyton's guy. It's not Peyton's trade. That's why he doesn't get along with Russ at all. I don't even think they would have even bothered with that trade. They would have probably tried to get Rodgers had, you know what I'm saying? It would have been a different way.
But I mean, everything
Peyton was in charge at that time.
But everything that Joe and Rob that you're saying though speaks to situationality when it comes to how these, like how much time to give these coaches. And I mean, look at Peyton had a good career and with Nola, so he's going to get extra time because he's won a Super Bowl. They know he's a good coach. The problem is when you get like first time head coaches like Eberflus. You know, I think we unfairly across the board with first-time NFL head coaches, give them a very, very short leash where we give guys who have longer tenure head coaches in other positions, other teams who've had some even sometimes not even great success, but moderate success, we'll give them a much longer leash. You need to give these head coaches 3 to 5. And I think with Eberflus, you're seeing why, going back to, once again, why I don't think he's on the hot seat, outside of the whole polls talking about breaking the cycle and everything, is you've seen improvement in Chicago over his tenure. And the other part, too, the last piece of it all, and I think the piece that always comes down to with head coaches, even why successful ones sometimes get fired, is do you have the locker room? And you can say in Eberflus's case, yes, he does. In Denver, though, I think the only way that Peyton goes early or is let go early is if he loses that locker room. And that's the big question. Does Sean Payton have the locker room, or did Russ poison it enough where it doesn't matter what he does, it's just a poison well now?
I agree with what Luke is saying.
Which one?
Peyton
The first or
chose
second?
that job. Peyton chose that job with that deal already in
With
place.
Russ, yeah.
Yeah, because you probably figured that he could get rid of him quick.
No way, bro. After they just did a blockbuster deal, it was like $200 million. They all those player trades. I mean, it was huge, man. That was huge.
Yeah, and I wasn't placing the blame on the previous regime. I was actually pointing out that I just don't believe that Peyton is going to be able to do it's not going to be a 3 to 5 year kind of deal. They're already 2 years in, and now they're just stripping down the roster, and now they have to rebuild it. So they got a whole bunch of rookies this year. It's going to take 2 years before we even know if those rookies are any good, you know?
I mean, Dorn makes this argument, which I think, though, goes back to what Joe was saying. It depends what you have to work with in that rebuild. And the Broncos were hamstrung by not having the picks you need to do it and the money you need to do it. So they were basically trying to do a rebuild, what Joe is saying, with one arm tied behind the back and maybe a leg, too.
Yeah. Well,
you know, I mean,
$38 million got paid to Russ this year. I mean, they're paying him. He's playing on another team.
I mean, the Bears, the Lions, the Packers have all done it within 2 to 3 years or less recently because they had the tools with which to do it. Right? They all had the tools with which to do this rebuild. And I think that's the difference. And we lost Joe, but Denver doesn't have the tools. So I think that's what he's saying. It's going to take another year. So, but I get John's sentiment. I mean, 2 years, 1 year, yeah, but look at what they already had in the roster. You know, we always look at everything in a vacuum. You got to look at situational needs, what teams have to work with, what they don't have to work with, how much money they got, what kind of draft capital, what they already had in place. And there's some luck involved, right? There's some luck involved in this league, too. So on that terrible last take, it was terrible. So terrible. We'll say, see you guys till tomorrow morning. Thank you for joining us in the morning. And also, I'll throw this in the comments. If you're going on vacation, I'd be remiss not to do this. And need a travel agent, contact my daughter. She's now a travel agent. So, you know, help keep in the family. There you go. The Facebook profile is in there. Give her a shout out. Book your travel with my daughter. She's now a travel agent. Got to help her out so she can get diapers and formula for the baby. You know how that. So there's my shameless plug at the end of the show. We'll see you guys tomorrow morning. Everyone have a safe day, and we'll see you soon.
This is a Huddle Sports Network broadcast. You can find us on Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, Facebook, and of course YouTube. Get all your NFL news here first. The daily podcasts are Ken and Ken in the Morning, Lions Talk with Smoking Jeremy B, Around the Indoor Football World, Shield TV, and The Big Football Show. The afternoon podcasts are Valhalla Hour, Brosef Sports, WCFL Dolphins Talk, The Cheap Seats, Bodkin Show, and Spirit of Detroit Podcast. The nightly podcasts are Hallis Hall Report, Frozen Tundra Network, Wrestling Roundup, Skull Gang 365, First and 10 with Foz, Prime Sports World, The Man Cave, Prim and Proper Sports, Spitballin' Podcast, Lions Fan Cave Chat, 313 Den Podcast, Puckett, The Guys Huddle, Main Event Football Show, Let's Talk Sports, The Michigan Sports Truth Podcast, and Off the Rails. Hope you enjoy all the shows and feel free to comment, like, share, and subscribe.
We're still live.